Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. We are gathered here today for our Municipal Financial Recovery Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Michael Dowry, and I have the pleasure of serving as receiver for the City of Chester. We are joined here today by Mr. Andrew Sheaf on behalf of the Governor's Office and the Department of Community and Economic Development, by Ms. Kelly Diaz on behalf of Delaware County Council, by Mayor Stephon Roots on behalf of the City of Chester, and by Councilman Shaquan Davis on behalf of Chester City Council. Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And as always, joined on these meetings by Chief of Staff to this engagement, Mr. Vijay Kapoor, and Executive Assistant from DCED, Mr. Cody Dale. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So to the panel, to the committee, we do have a presentation here today that's pretty lengthy. So I'm not going to share. Well, I only had one brief update, but we're just going to jump right in and get to the presentation. But before we do that, Mr. Dill, was there any public comment received since the last MPRAC meeting?
We have not received any public comments, so would just like to again encourage the public to reach out to us. The best way to do so is through our email address. It's info@chesterreceivership.com.
Thank you for that, Mr. Dill. And Mr. Kapoor, are there any general updates that you'd like to provide, or would you save everything for the presentation?
Just the only update is that our new CFO has started. This will be his first full, well, actually not full week. Last week was his first full week. This will be his second week in the City of Chester. Rich Troutman, like to welcome him aboard and wish him the best of luck in the work that he's doing. And to date, we've been very impressed with his performance as well as of the finance department, and we're looking forward to progress being made there.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. And I'll piggyback your comments with a thank you to Mayor Roots and City Council. I think it was the meeting before last, forgive me for the exact date, but the city did withdraw their appeal to the bankruptcy process, to the eligibility of the City of Chester going through the bankruptcy process. So I just wanted to extend a thank you to Mayor and Council for your work there in supporting that action. Without further ado, we will get into today's presentation. Mr. Kapoor, I yield the floor to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Receiver, and I do have the presentation up. Can folks see it all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, great. So what I have for the committee and for the public today is an update from the last MFRAC presentation that we did 2 weeks ago regarding a motion that the receiver filed on behalf of the city seeking information from the Stormwater Authority of Chester. We filed, or the receiver filed, a what's referred to as a 2004 motion in the bankruptcy court on May 9th. Since that filing, we have requested additional information from the Stormwater Authority. We have not received either the initial information nor the supplemental information that has been requested. And the purpose of this presentation is to explain what the additional information the receiver is seeking and why he has requested that information. So for those of you who didn't tune into the last MFRAC presentation, I've got a couple of slides here that are just kind of background that hopefully get everybody kind of up to speed on what's going on here, what some of the background is, and then we'll obviously move on to the kind of issue, the new issue at hand. So to take a moment, the Stormwater Authority of the City of Chester, or SAC as we abbreviate it, was incorporated through filing something referred to as an Articles of Incorporation by Chester City Council in November of 2016 as a municipal authority with a board of 5 members. The original board members were appointed by Chester City Council. And for those of you who don't know, Articles of Incorporation are similar to a city charter. They're basically the kind of the foundational governing document for an authority in Pennsylvania. Now, SAC is subject to a law, a Pennsylvania law that's called the Municipal Authorities Act, or the MAA. You'll see that abbreviated. And the MAA specifically provides that the city of Chester, as the incorporating municipality of SAC, has the unilateral right to reacquire all assets of SAC. Also importantly, the MAA also sets out certain procedural and substantive rules that authorities and their boards must follow. So basically, the MAA is the law that authorities are created under in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and are governed under in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And they need to follow those rules, and their boards also need to follow the rules in the MAA. Now, I want to just spend a moment here because since the last presentation, there were some comments made in a newspaper article regarding whether or not the MAA actually applies to the stormwater. In the May 16th, 2024 Delco Times article, there appeared to be some disagreement as to whether the MAA applies to the stormwater. I want to be very clear that the MAA does apply to the Stormwater Authority. Although there was some back and forth between myself and the executive manager of the Stormwater Authority, in the reply to the 2004 motion that the receiver filed, the Stormwater Authority's Bankruptcy Council also agrees that the Stormwater Authority is subject to the MAA. In that answer to the motion, the Bankruptcy Council wrote, quote, "The Stormwater Authority of the City of Chester was incorporated on October 12, 2016, and has been lawfully operating pursuant to Pennsylvania's Municipal Authorities Act." So there should be no question at this point that the Stormwater Authority is under the Municipal Authorities Act. And with respect to DCED, although audits, I believe, are sometimes submitted to DCED, DCED doesn't have jurisdiction over the Stormwater Authority. The law is the Municipal Authorities Act. So I want to talk a little bit about, again, the Articles of Incorporation, because that's an important document that we're going to refer to several times during this presentation. The Articles of Incorporation were filed on October 8th of 2016. They explicitly stated that the Stormwater Authority was formed under the Municipal Authorities Act. They enumerated only 5 board members. This is an important point that we'll continue to go back to in this presentation. And they received a certificate of incorporation from the state on October 31st of 2016. So what I have here, and this may be a little bit difficult to read on the screen, but you can download it from the Stormwater Authority website using this link. If you go to chesterStormwaterAuthority.com, there's a section that says Public Notices and Announcements. These are the Articles of Incorporation. They were filed on October 28th, 2016. They were, quote, formed under the Municipal Authorities Act. And this is a key point right here. They enumerated 5 board members. There's no reference to additional board members. So the initial 5 board members were set out in the Articles of Incorporation, and they had staggered terms. So there's one individual for 5 years, one for 4, one for 3, one for 2, one for 1. No other language in the Articles of Incorporation that referenced any additional board members other than these 5. So initially, the information that the receiver was seeking from the SAC, this was from our last presentation, is a variety of financial and operational information. Bank statements, budget to actual reports, the annual budget, cash flow projections, agreements with Penvest, from whom the Stormwater Authority has borrowed a significant amount of money, information regarding the purchase of buildings, rate projections, the long-term control plan and the current status of each project identified in it, agreements with a company known as Corvius, whether or not they've been terminated or have been expired, and copies of documents and information relevant to loans to the SAC from the executive manager and his church. In terms of why we were seeking this information, why the receiver was seeking this information, is for a couple of reasons. First is, as part of the bankruptcy process, the receiver has to propose what's referred to as a plan of adjustment that the bankruptcy court can confirm. And to that end, the receiver is looking at all the various city assets and property interests that it has. Because the Stormwater Authority can be reacquired by the city and is a city asset, the receiver has an interest and a duty to make sure that it's running financially and operationally soundly. Second reason is that Chester taxpayers are already very heavily taxed. And the Stormwater Authority's rates are among the highest in the Commonwealth and possibly in the country. It's also not clear whether the Stormwater Authority took into account the proper guidelines under the Municipal Authorities Act when it raised rates effective October of 2023. And then there's been some events within the last year that have raised some concerns about the Stormwater Authority's financial condition and governance. Those events were in October of last year. There were minutes from the Stormwater Authority that reported loans totaling $40,000 from the executive manager and his church to the Stormwater Authority to make payroll, which potentially violated the Municipal Authorities Act's procedures on debt incurrence. On October 21st of 2023, the Stormwater Authority raised its fees to an amount nearly double the rate that was charged in 2017 when it first started charging residents. And again, we have concerns over here about the process by which that was done, and the fact that these rates are among the highest in Pennsylvania and possibly in the country. Continued concerns, in addition to financial concerns, the receiver also has board governance concerns that have only grown, and we'll get to those in a moment. But the ones that we talked about 2 weeks ago were first that the Stormwater Authority appeared to be violating its articles of incorporation regarding the number of board members it has. You all saw earlier that the articles of incorporation only enumerated 5 board members. The current number of board members appears to be at least 7 and possibly more. We're not exactly sure at the moment because people have apparently resigned, but then have remained on the board. And 2 Chester City Council members also sit on the Stormwater Authority board as purportedly compensated board members, which, according to the city solicitor, violates the Chester City Charter. So let's move on. That was a lot of background, but I think probably important for those who haven't been following this to kind of get up to speed. I want to focus now on the additional information that the receiver is seeking, that the receiver sent to the Stormwater Authority Bankruptcy Council last Monday. So there were 9 additional items that the receiver has requested from the Stormwater Authority. The first is, number 1, is the names and term expiration dates for all current Stormwater Authority board members. The second are the names and the resignation dates for any Stormwater Authority board member who resigned or tendered their resignation from the Stormwater Authority board in 2024, including any documentation thereof. Number 3, any Stormwater Authority resolutions or documents that purported to expand the board to more than 5 members. Number 4, from March 1st of 2016, the salaries or other compensation paid by the Stormwater Authority to their board members broken out by board member. Number 5, from March 1st of 2016, forms of all compensation to Stormwater Authority officers, including the executive manager and the solicitor, broken out as between the respective roles served. Number 6, any City of Chester resolution or ordinance that purports to establish Stormwater Authority board member salaries. Number 7, any Stormwater Authority resolution that purports to establish the Stormwater Authority board member salaries. Number 8, a copy of the text of the resolution that was, quote, adopting amendment to Articles of Incorporation of Stormwater Authority of the City of Chester as referenced in the February 13th, 2024 Stormwater Authority board member minutes, as well as evidence of compliance with the Municipal Authorities Act's procedures. And finally, number 9, copies of the current set of the Stormwater Authority bylaws and the Stormwater Authority board resolution that were approving such bylaws. So those were the 9 items we asked for. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to kind of explain why we're asking for those and to provide a little more context for the reasons that these were requested and kind of what's underlying the concerns and the reasoning for this information. So the first issue that we kind of are looking at here is trying to just simply determine the current composition of the Stormwater Authority board. This is basically like saying who's on city council for the city. This seems like a very basic thing to do, but at this point, it's actually not clear who's on the Stormwater Authority board. And that's what has to do with items 1 and 2 that I referenced on slide 11. we're trying to figure out who's on the Stormwater Authority board and the duration of their terms. And again, the reason I'm saying this is over the last couple of months, we've had some board members who have tendered their resignations. We've seen them in emails only to still remain on the board. So everybody, not just the receiver, but I think everybody needs to know definitively who is currently appointed to serve and act on the board, and if there were resignations, when they occurred. Additionally, as we'll talk about in the next slide, the Stormwater Authority appears to be operating with more than 5 board members, which is in violation of its Articles of Incorporation, but it's unclear how many. So our second issue that we're trying to figure out is we're trying to figure out how many board members the Stormwater Authority is authorized to have and how many it actually does have. And again, we're determining why it has more than 5 board members, which is what was set forth in the Articles of Incorporation, which have not been officially amended. I should also be clear, those are the Articles of Incorporation. We'll talk in a few slides about the amendment process of how to amend the Articles of Incorporation, but that has not happened for the Stormwater Authority. So determining how many board members the SAC is authorized to have. Section 5610 of the Municipal Authorities Act provides that, quote, if the authority is incorporated by one municipality, and that's the case here, it's incorporated by the city of Chester, the board shall consist of a number of members, not less than 5, as enumerated in the Articles of Incorporation. And as we saw in the Articles of Incorporation, we saw before, it enumerates only 5 board members. It does not talk about any more than 5 board members. It does not talk about any less than 5 board members. It has 5 board members. And in this slide, on slide 15, we wanted to take a look kind of historically, because again, this kind of puts into context the issue that we're really dealing with in understanding like who is really on the Stormwater Authority. And you know, because the appointments of Stormwater Authority board members are done by the city, and there's a dispute here as to, again, the Articles of Incorporation, as well as, you know, when some of these board members, who and when these certain board members came on. What I did was I went and looked on the Stormwater Authority website. And on their website, they have minutes from meetings as well as agendas for meetings. In the top left-hand corner of those minutes, they have a list of all the board members. And so what I did, rather than ask the question, again, since we've already asked it and we haven't gotten an answer, what I did was I looked at every one of those headers. And based on the meetings, I looked at who were the names on those headers. And these were the dates of the minutes where these board members first appeared. So first, under the Articles of Incorporation, this was 10/28/16, there were 5 board members. Livia Smith, Latifah Griffin, Joan Neal, Bill Riley, John Shelton, 5 board members. The next time that the board member composition changed what appeared in the minutes of February 14th of 2017. Again, there were still 5 board members. The only difference was Portia West replaced Latifah Griffin. And then the next time it changed, the header changed, happened on August 11th of 2020. And there, what it appears to happen was the number of board members went from 5 to 7. And what had happened was the additional board members that were added, so the same folks that were in the board prior to that remained on there, but there were 2 members added, Fred Green and Joy Taylor. And then the minutes of last year, December 12th of 2023, and these have continued on to the current, there appear to be 9 members now on the board. There were an additional 2 added. Those additional 2 were Susan Dennis and former Councilwoman Elizabeth Williams. What I've also noted here on this slide is the timing of things. I think what I would refer to as other important dates. One of those important dates was the receiver was appointed in June of 2020. So this means between June of 2020 and August 11th of 2020, so within 2 months, there were an additional 2 board members added. And then the additional 2 more board members were added in December of last year, and that came after the election of 2023. where the council was turning over. I note those because those are important dates. I will say that at no point was the receivers team asked about appointments to the Stormwater Authority Board or expansion of members. This was done through council, and it was done prior to those dates. The two individuals here, Portia West and Joy Taylor, I have asterisks by their names because we have seen resignations by them earlier this year to the Stormwater Authority Board, resignations from the board, yet upon at least as late as last week, they both remained on the Stormwater Authority Board. So currently, at least on the headers of the agendas and the minutes, there appear to be 9 board members on the Stormwater Authority, all of which, by the way, are being paid in some form at some rate. And that is clearly nearly double the number of members that were established in the Articles of Incorporation. The next issue I want to talk about is board member compensation. And so items 4 through 7 here are seeking to determine if and how much Stormwater Authority board members and the officers are being compensated. And really importantly and basically, whether the Stormwater Authority even has the legal authority to compensate its board members and its officers. And again, here we go back to the Municipal Authorities Act. And Section 5610D of the Municipal Authorities Act provides that board members, quote, shall receive such salaries as may be determined by the governing body of the municipality. So to be clear here, the Municipal Authorities Act says that it is up to the governing municipality, that would be the city of Chester, to set the salaries for board members. And it's very clear about that. The city can also choose not to compensate board members. That's also something that is pretty frequent around the Commonwealth. So in this case, the governing body of the municipality is Chester City Council. However, we asked the city solicitor to go back through all of the ordinances and resolutions going back to 2016 to see whether Chester City Council indeed actually set the board member salaries. And we found no evidence that Chester City Council ever approved or established salaries for the Stormwater Authority board members. That's a significant issue. And again, if that's true, what it means is, number one, the Stormwater Authority lacks the requisite legal authority to pay its board member salaries. And number two, importantly, those board members who improperly received salaries may have to pay the salaries back as restitution because the Stormwater Authority was never legally authorized to compensate its board members. Again, under the Municipal Authorities Act, which the SAC is under, that ability to set the salaries is with the governing body of the municipality, Chester City Council, not the Stormwater Authority of Chester's board. And that again is why we're requesting information about resolutions, both from the Stormwater Authority, as well as any resolutions the Stormwater Authority may be aware of that the city of Chester may have passed that established board member compensation. The next item, which is also troubling here, and we're trying to get more information about it, is the purported amendment to the Articles of Incorporation by the Stormwater Authority Board. So this is referring to an action that we noticed in the minutes of the Stormwater Authority's February 13th, 2024 board meeting, which appeared to attempt to amend the Articles of Incorporation. So this occurred, only 3 months ago. Unfortunately, the minutes don't say what the purported attempted amendment seeks to do. It just talks about an amendment to the Articles of Incorporation. Section 5605 of the Municipal Authorities Act, though, is very clear in setting forth a process for amending an authority's articles. And that includes submitting those proposed amendments to the municipality, which, quote, shall adopt or reject such amendment by resolution or ordinance. So what happens is the way this process works under the MAA is that The Stormwater Authority Board may pass a resolution. Again, let's make sure it's the right, should make sure it's the right number, but the Stormwater Authority Board passes its recommended amendments to the articles of incorporation, but then it needs to go to the governing body of the municipality. So that would need to go to Chester City Council. And there's no evidence that the proposed amendments, whatever they were, because again, we don't know what they are right now. And that's something we asked for last week, were submitted to the city of Chester City Council, nor is there any evidence that Chester City Council has adopted them by resolution. So A, we're trying to find out what they are. Number two, we're trying to understand kind of where they are in the process. And then finally, with respect to the issues, before I move into a couple of other areas, we've got unclear bylaws with the Stormwater Authority. So we're seeking to understand what are the Stormwater Authority's bylaws. And the bylaws are basically kind of rules and regulations that the Stormwater Authority Board passes for itself. It's what's sort of I would refer to these as internal rules. They're different than the Articles of Incorporation. The Articles of Incorporation, again, are almost like the charter. And the bylaws are basically the procedures by which the board kind of conducts business. So, and here's the reason why we're asking for this. Under the public notices announcements on the Stormwater Authority website, there are actually two sets of bylaws. There's a document that has the link of, quote, board bylaws, and another document with the link of SAC bylaws. So it appears like you've got two different sets of bylaws on your website. So we don't know which one's which. None of the documents are dated. We don't know which one's in effect. And even some provisions in the document are inconsistent with the Articles of Incorporation. Again, you cannot amend the Articles of Incorporation through bylaws. Like you can't do that. It's like Chester City Council amending their charter by a resolution. Like there's a process for this. And there's a good reason why there's a process for this. So some of the information or provisions in the bylaws that are inconsistent with the Articles of Incorporation is paragraph 7.2 of the SAC bylaws document, which appears to unilaterally increase the number of board members. And what it states is, quote, the authorized number of directors shall be set at least 5, but not more than 11. So what that looks like to me is basically an attempt through the bylaws to expand the board. But again, you can't do that. You got to do that through the Articles of Incorporation, not through the bylaws. And again, as we saw in the Articles of Incorporation, they list 5 board members, and increasing or decreasing that number requires the amendment of the Articles of Incorporation and, again, approval by Chester City Council. So the final sets of slides here, again, I want to kind of wrap this up and put this into kind of bigger context here of again, like, why are we going through the trouble of doing this? What's the point of this? Why have we had to take this to court? Why are we pursuing this so aggressively? And I want to be clear on slide 19 that we did not start in court. This has been a pretty long, drawn-out process going back to March of this year. That's when Mayor Root sends a letter to the Stormwater Authority Executive Manager asking for the information. It wasn't provided. On April 1st of 2024, the receiver follows up to the Stormwater Authority Chairwoman asking for the information. On April 8th, a week later, the Stormwater Authority Legal Counsel responds to the receiver's letter saying, this is the basically go file a right to know request. Absent a proper request made under the Pennsylvania right to know law, the Stormwater Authority is under no obligation to provide the material requested. Again, we don't have the information. Then on May 9th, the receiver files the 2004 motion with the bankruptcy court seeking the information. On May 16th, and again, we're going to get into sort of the rationale that the Stormwater Authority has at least publicly stated for why it has not given it this information. But in this May 16th Delco Times article, which is the link in this presentation earlier, that article quotes the Stormwater Authority Executive Manager saying, quote, if he, and I'm not sure if he's referring to the receiver or the mayor, had asked us like a gentleman, we would have given it to him. Any documents they want, they are welcome to have them. Information still not provided. On May 20th, so last Monday, The receiver sends a supplemental information request to the Stormwater Authority Council. That's what I outlined earlier in this presentation. 3 days later, in the Stormwater Authority, they have now bankruptcy counsel. The Stormwater Authority Bankruptcy Council files an answer to the 2004 motion, the one that the receiver filed, opposing the receiver's ability to obtain this information. And the information is still not provided. So, we've gone from the mayor asking to the receiver asking to filings in the court. And in the next two slides, I think it's important here, again, to really kind of highlight what the situation is and what the Stormwater Authority's own words are, what their officials' own words are regarding this information. Because the story for why this information hasn't been provided, it keeps changing. So let's start on March 12th of 2024. I would characterize this as we haven't had enough time to compile the information. That was the rationale. There was an email from Dr. Strand to Mayor Roots from March 12th. Mr. Roots, I received your request concerning the information related to the Stormwater Authority of the City of Chester. However, the time in which you have demanded this information be sent to your office is not enough time for us to review and to compile this information. Nothing about a right to know request. Nothing about whether you have the right to this information or not. Just, I don't have enough time to put this together in the timeline that you set. Fast forward to April 8th. I characterize this as you don't have the right to this information without filing a right to know request. This was from the letter from the Stormwater Authority's counsel to the receiver. A couple weeks later, quote, absent a proper request made under the Pennsylvania right to know law, SAC is under no obligation to provide the material requested. Doesn't say anything about we don't have enough time. It says that you got to file a right to know request. Okay, May 16th, and this is in the Delco Times article. I characterize this as we'll give you the documents, but you didn't ask nicely enough, so we didn't give them to you. From the May 16th Delco Times article, quoting the executive manager, Dr. Strand, again, quote, if he had asked us like a gentleman, we would have given it to him. Any documents they want, they are welcome to have them. Nothing about a right to know request, nothing about amount of time that it takes to put it together. Basically, we'll give it to them. You didn't ask nicely. May 23rd. Now this changes even more. This came from the answer to the motion that the receiver made, and this came from Stormwater Authority's counsel. And they say you need to ask the Commonwealth Court, not the Bankruptcy Court. So from their answer, from their May 23rd answer, and this is in paragraph 54, opposing the 2004 motion, it says, quote, requests for the documents that are the subject of this pending motion can and should be requested through the Commonwealth Court proceedings. So we've gone from haven't had the time to pull it together to filing a right to know request to you can have them, but you didn't ask nicely to you got to go ask the Commonwealth Court. All in the course of 2.5 months. So I'm not sure if anyone really believes, because we certainly don't, that if we filed a right to know request, that we'd have these documents by now. Because again, the story just keeps changing here in terms of why we are not able to be provided with public information regarding a public authority that the receiver has jurisdiction over, both under Act 47, as well as based on the fact that we're in the bankruptcy process right now. So the final thing I kind of want to wrap all of this up here, because again, just to kind of put all of this in context so that the public, again, understands kind of where the receiver is coming from and, why we're continuing to pursue this, is these are the facts as they stand now. And these are really undisputed facts. First, the Stormwater Authority received loans totaling $40,000 from the executive manager and his church to make SAC payroll. That's clear evidence of financial issues and concerns about financial issues. No other authority that I have ever encountered has taken a personal loan from its executive manager or his church in order to make payroll. The Stormwater Authority has filed over 1,500 lawsuits seeking to place liens on properties in Chester for what we believe are unpaid or owed amounts. The rates, the Stormwater Authority rates, have doubled since 2017 and are among the highest in Pennsylvania. The board appears to be operating with more board members than authorized in its articles of incorporation. We have board members that have submitted resignations but still appear to be on the board. We have board members appear to be receiving salaries without city authorization. We have certain board members who are also Chester City Council members who appear to be violating the Chester City Charter by serving on a paid board. We have a resolution passed by the Stormwater Authority Board in February of 2024 attempting to amend the Articles of Incorporation, but the minutes don't reflect how. And we can have this situation where the Stormwater Authority continues to refuse to provide basic information. And the story for why it will not provide that information has changed multiple times. So that is kind of the environment right now that that the receiver and the city, frankly, find themselves in. So in terms of the next steps, again, we are just noting this in the motion that we have filed. The information that we seek is preliminary. We reserve the right to seek further discovery as necessary, including the authority to conduct depositions if necessary. And based on this, it appears that they likely will be necessary. And that the hearing on the receiver's motion is set for bankruptcy court for Wednesday, June 5th of 2024 at 12:30 p.m. in downtown Philadelphia in the bankruptcy court. And that hearing is open to the public. So with that, I appreciate the patience of the committee, to the public, and I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any comments. So turn it back over to you, Mr. Receiver.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor, and thank you for walking us through the timeline and really getting into the details of what the issues at hand really are. I'll open it up to the committee. Are there any questions of Mr. Kapoor or myself, Mayor Roots?
Yeah, you have to go all the way back in that presentation to some of the earlier slides. Something just didn't jive for me date-wise. Mr. Kapoor, you had mentioned that you were seeking or information on compensation from the board members from March of 2016. But in an earlier slide, you had stated that the articles of incorporation occurred in, I think, October of 2016. It's a lot to digest here, but I would think that the board members wouldn't have started serving before October of 2016 when the articles of incorporation were implemented. Was there a date wrong on your? I'm confused. Maybe
no. So I mean, I kind of wish there was a date wrong. But no, that was intended for March 1st of 2016. The mayor's absolutely right. We are asking for information going, and I'll explain in a second, as best as I can understand. So I'll explain as best as I can understand. So we are asking for compensation that goes all the way back to March 1st of 2016, even though the Articles of Incorporation, even though the Stormwater Authority was not created legally until the end of October, beginning of November of 2016. What has further confused us is that and let me just add some complexity before I try and clear it up a little bit. If you go to the Stormwater Authority's website, Stormwater Authority Board's, Chester Stormwater Authority website, and you look under the minutes, they actually have minutes that were dated in May of 2016. And those almost appear like they're minutes. They're actual minutes of a meeting that occurred in May of 2016. Again, how many? 6 months, 5 months before they were incorporated. And it appears to be kind of like an organizational meeting. The issue that at least we understood it is back in March of 2016, there was a resolution passed by the city of Chester City Council expressing an intent to form a stormwater authority. But the Municipal Authorities Act is very clear about how you do that. It's got a whole section of how you do it. You've got to file articles of incorporation those articles of incorporation and resolution have to have specific items in them. And they didn't do that properly until November. So we're sort of at a loss as to what was really going on prior to November of 2016, other than like there appeared to have been a meeting prior to the articles of incorporation occurring. And from a legal point of view, that meeting would have no legal significance because the entity itself didn't exist until these articles of incorporation were filed and you received your certificate. So I don't even know what happened prior to this. But we just want to make doubly sure that if compensation was provided to those board members or to the people who purportedly were the board members at that time, that we find out what that is.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else on the committee have any questions of Mr. Kapoor or myself?
I just have one question. So just for clarification, the city council appoints the board members of the SAC? Okay, and so like there's nowhere on like the city's website where there would be like, okay, there's a vacancy and anyone who, I don't know how normally these board members we pick, but I would think it like other municipalities that have different other kind of boards, not this one. There's a call for vacancies, people put their applications in, resumes, et cetera, and then at a meeting, there would be a recommendation for a name, and then that would be in public. A person would be named, and then they would serve for so many years. So I guess there's nothing. There was nothing you could find that shows like anything like that in the city's records.
No. So we do have resolutions that appointed board members. So those we do have. There's two issues with that. One is, I think you put your finger on it. You only appoint when there's a vacancy, right? And so, and the other thing is the way that the act is set up. I believe folks that has to be done in staggered terms. And the flurry of additional board members that were added at the end of last year. Again, I'm not sure how those lined up, but it wasn't, Ms. Diaz, as if like there was a call for appointments and there was a vacancy there. Those pretty much happened by the city council at that time.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure. But again, but there was no information, just to go back to it again, to be clear, there was no resolutions that showed any setting of salaries which are required, and no resolutions that showed the approval of the amendment of the Articles of Incorporation to expand the board to more than 5.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. If there are no additional questions from the committee, I'll just add a couple comments from my position. We have an obligation. I have an obligation to complete our due diligence and look at every aspect of city operations. There's no aspect of the city operation that will be exempt from the plan of adjustment process and working through the federal courts. Furthermore, I don't want us to get too far ahead of ourselves. At this point, we're still gathering information, and we'll see how all that comes together. And hopefully it shouldn't take a court hearing for us to get to that point, but we'll see how this plays out, and we'll see what information we're able to gather. We are receiving several questions about sanctions and what can be done. Right now, I don't want to speculate on that. First of all, my office is not an enforcement arm. I don't particularly have the ability to enforce sanctions. But as we gather this information, we will forward it to all respective parties that do have that authority and oversight, and we'll see where that goes. But at this point, it'd be too early to speculate on what those sanctions could possibly be. I think Mr. Kapoor was correct, though, to allude to the fact that restitution could be a part of it, but that remains to be seen. So before we wrap up for the day, are there any general comments for the committee? Well, seeing none, I again want to thank you for coming out and spending this 45 minutes with us here. We will reconvene the second Tuesday in June and continue on with our normal schedule. To the viewing public, if you would like to engage, please, as Mr. Dale laid out, utilize our email address, info@chesterreceivership.com, or our website, or call the office directly, and we'd happy to engage. I thank you for your time and attention and assistance, and this meeting is adjourned.